Hello and welcome to Get to Know Them podcast. This is a podcast in which I'm gonna talk with some of the world's highest performers in order to learn more about them. I'm your host, Ken Shuligoy. I hope you enjoy. Okay, who do we get to know today?
Hi, I'm Lizzie Rayner.
And who is Lizzie Rayner? What do you do, Lizzie?
I'm a professional triathlete. I'm ranked 56th in the world and ninth in the UK. I've been pro since 2022, where that's when I did my first middle distance race and accidentally won, which in the UK qualifies you for your pro license. So I was in a bit of a rubbish job at the time, decided to quit and go all in on triathlons. So I've been doing that ever since. I do work a little bit part time on the side to be able to fund this career, that what I love, but it's going the right direction. So yeah, I'm really excited to see where I get to in the next hopefully 10, 12 years.
Something makes me think that you don't just win your first triathlon by accident. So tell me, how long have you been doing triathlon?
So I did my first triathlon when I was 12. And then I did a few more when I was 16, I think inspired by Jonny and Alistair at the 2012 Olympics. And then, so 2022 was my first middle distance race. So I did a few sprint distance races. I only ever did one Olympic distance race in the middle of lockdown when some events started happening again. And then, yeah, realized the only way really to be a pro triathlete in the UK, unless you've been on like a pathway since you're sort of 12, 13, is to go long. So I did Outlaw Half Nottingham in May of 22, just thought, oh, top five would be really good. Let's just see how I like it. I hadn't really ridden a TT bike before. And yeah, showed up and took the win, which was a very surreal day. And then it was just a leap of faith that I thought I could do what I want now and follow that dream. So that's what I've been doing.
Did you think for a long time before you took your professional license, or was it an instant decision?
It was pretty quick. Yeah. In the UK, it's really hard to get your pro license. I know there's people that have tried for many years. So I didn't know when that opportunity was going to come around again. And I thought, look, it's what I want to do. So why not do it now? Just take a big jump. And it meant that my second ever middle distance race was my first pro race, which was very bizarre. That was at Swansea, 70.3 Swansea in 2022. So I'm lining up with like Kat Matthews, Ruth Assel, and of all people, Alistair Brownlee. And you're like, God, I watched you as a kid growing up. Like you inspired me to do the sport, and then you're on the same start line. Obviously not at the same level, but it was incredible. Yeah,
And how did that first professional race go versus your idols?
it was good. I came sixth. I think Swansea was a good place to start. Like it's a fairly every year it tends to be quite a small domestic field. Um, yeah, it was hard, and it didn't help that it was a really hot day, which is surprising for Wales. But it was pretty good. Good starting point.
Yeah, I like that. And obviously, looking at your results since then, it was, like you said, a good base, which you're steadily building up on in the, let's say, last 2 years and hopefully in the future as well. But tell me, since you've been in triathlon for a longer time, what do you like the most about triathlon and which things do you dislike the most?
What do I like? I know it's a cliche, but the community is fantastic. I'm part of a lovely team down here near Bath, and even at pro level, like everyone's friends, and you go to events and you'll always have people to chat to, and everyone's super friendly. You know, before and after, maybe not so much during, but that's part of sport. Uh, so yeah, I love where it takes you. I love the community. I love the fact that we get to race with age groupers and be part of their journey as well. If that was me in Swansea in 22 racing the age group field and Alice Brownlee's just cruising past me at what 3 minute per K pace, what other sport do you get to do that, right? I think I love that. Um, what don't I like so much? How much it all costs. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I think it'll be refreshing for some people to know that even as a professional, you don't get hardly anything is subsidized. Our race entries from Ironman, you still have to pay. Um, it's a flat rate of about $250 for 70.3. So it's obviously still better than what an age group has to pay, but it's still a lot of money. Challenge races are free if you're ranked in the top 250 in the world, but everything else you have to pay for. I've just started to get to that point in my career where I'm getting product only sponsorship. So nutrition, I've got a wheel sponsor, wetsuits, but not much money yet. But I feel like next year I should be in the position to say, look, I deserve to be paid for what I do because I'm good at it. And I hope by the end of the year I can be in the top 40, top 50 in the world. And that should be that's a decent enough position to go, yeah, you need to pay me now to rep your brand because I can't do this for free. So it's having the confidence to do that because yeah, it's expensive and it's stressful. It's part of the reason it is the reason I still live at home, which obviously I'm very grateful to do. But it's that, and that helps massively. Obviously, I would probably not if I didn't have to. Oh no, I don't know. That's really harsh. I hope my mum doesn't listen to this.
But can you explain into a bit more detail how hard is it to navigate all these sponsorships and talking to brands and everything? Because people might think that, oh, she's a professional triathlete. Oh, she's even, let's say, top 50, top 60 in the world. I mean, she's obviously paid. People are just standing there and waiting for her to, I don't know, promote the brand or something. Is it really that simple or is it very, very hard?
It's really, really hard because the problem you have now is there's a lot of people coming into triathlon or turning triathlon. They're not triathletes, they're influencers. And so therefore you're competing with people that might not even necessarily be pro triathletes, but because they have tens of thousands of Instagram followers, a brand would rather choose them over you. And that's really difficult because you think, this is my career. I'm doing it because I love it. And it's really hard on the financial side. What I found hard in the beginning was reaching out to brands, knowing what you're worth. It's unless you have guidance, which I don't yet have. I'm thinking about bringing on some management for next year. It's really hard to say to a brand like, "This is what you should pay me." I have the confidence to say, "This is what I'm worth," and I'm going to stereotype here, but all the male pro triathletes I know, they're a lot better at it than the girls because I think they have the confidence to say how good they are. Whereas that's the hard thing, and I'm in my second pro year and I didn't really push hard last year for any kind of sponsorship because I didn't have the results to back myself. So therefore, what are you approaching a brand with? You've come like fourth in a 70.3 in Wales or whatever. It's not really good enough. So I was sort of this year where I'm climbing up the rankings, I'm getting the results. And obviously last year I did have 2 international podiums. So I have been, you have to use that as leverage and say, look, I can compete with the best in the world. But it is, yeah, it's really hard. And then it's making that jump from next year product only to then financial. That's pretty hard. But I think I'm now in a position where I just don't really want, I get brands offering to send me things and for in exchange for a post on Instagram or whatever. And I think, well, actually, if I'm not going to use the product and it's not actually worth anything to me, then I'm not going to do it just for the sake of free stuff. And then it's, part of being a pro triathlete is your social media, is that you are the brand you're trying to market. So that's a huge part of your job. Some people do it better than others. And where I struggle with it is that when you have periods of like not enjoying the sport or you have a bad result or anything of struggling with something, makes you less inclined to put your life online. And therefore you get less engagement, you lose followers. And that's really hard because I think for some brands, especially bigger brands, the first thing they do is look at how many followers you have. I spoke to a management company at the start of the year and they said, look, let's try and you need to try and get to 10,000 followers at the end of the year. I'm on just over 5,000. And you think, how the heck do I double that in a year? It's really hard. It's really time consuming, but it's, you have to do it. But then again, that's the whole money side of things. Because if I had the money, I'd pay someone to do it. I'd pay someone to create my content. Or I'd pay a photographer, I'd pay a videographer to come to races so I could do YouTube or whatever. So there's a lot that goes into it. And it's having the confidence to back yourself, but it's also knowing I was completely clueless. I still am pretty much completely clueless as to what you ask from a brand. I found the best thing is to lie out all your expenses basically and say, this is what my season of European racing would cost me. And then obviously I'm going to World Champs in New Zealand at the end of the year. So say that's what this trip will cost me. And then a brand's more likely, because they can visualize how much everything costs, or I'm like, this is how much a new bike could be. Then they can think, okay, I'll put it towards this or put it towards that. So that's a bit easier from like a local brand point of view. But then obviously as you start to get into bigger brands like kit and bikes and helmets and whatever, it's a bit more it's different because you have a contract. So I'm still figuring that out, but yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, obviously. And you also mentioned that when you go through tough periods in your life, then you start losing followers and stop losing the people who are watching you and maybe don't seem as attractive even to potential sponsors. But tell me, when the things get hard for you, what keeps you going?
um, so to put it into context, I had a bit of a rough last month. Maybe I did 70.3 Valencia where I came sixth, which was amazing, like 30 seconds behind Laura Philipp. And then 3 weeks later, I did 70.3 Mallorca, which was a pro series race. So, and they both had very high strength of fields. So I did two fairly big back-to-back races, two fairly big high profile races back to back, basically. And I think, whereas last year I kept it very low key, I just raced local just to gain some experience at the distance and get a bit of money from prize money. I think I underestimated the effect that would take on me mentally and physically with the traveling, with like Mallorca being televised, you have press conferences, you have pro photo shoots, interviews, like there's all extra stuff that comes with it. And I think it meant that, and I got a bit overwhelmed by it, to be honest, and looking at the start list thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm like doing the right thing by racing these big races. And then Torsten put out a post that had me down as like I should finish 10th, and I saw that and I shouldn't have looked, and that kind of like got in my head a bit. And then I didn't enjoy the day. Like I had a very, very bang average performance, a great result, fifth, I think 3 seconds behind fourth, but a very average day. And for me, the main thing was that I just didn't enjoy a second of it. And it's really hard after that when people go, "Oh, you had an amazing result, well done," and you're like, "I'm disappointed that I didn't have it. It didn't feel great, and I didn't have a good day." Um, so then I just sort of struggled a bit of motivation in training. I thought I'd do in the build up for 70.3 Les Sables, which was on Saturday, which I didn't do. I was going to do Challenge Wales, and that was my first ever DNF, which was really hard. And I was really sad. I was disappointed. I was frustrated, and I was pretty embarrassed, to be honest. But there were a lot of factors that went into it, and I think I did really struggle after that because I was in a bit of pain. I'd done something to my back. We had to get an MRI scan in case it was a stress fracture. So that was another 200, £320 I had to spend while feeling a bit rubbish about training, and nothing was working. I couldn't put out the power in racing that I could in training. You know, Mallorca, I was 15 to 20 watts less than what I should be. Challenge Wales, I had such bad back pain that I couldn't push out any power, and then I had to stop on the run. And I think the thing that I basically knew I had to have a reset, and I needed a mental and physical reset. As much as you don't want to take time off training and get unfit, and I just had a week. I just took a week of doing whatever I wanted. I still ended up doing about 15 hours of training, but it was all easy. It was all stuff that makes me happy. And I can't believe the difference that week made. And it sort of just rekindled my love for just moving my body and being out in the sun and actually just not being on my phone and not taking my headphones and just being really cliche, but in nature. And I slept a lot, I ate loads of good food. And then I just sort of reminded myself of what I want. I always do that. I think of finishing, I think of winning a race. I visualize quite a lot. If I'm in a really hard session, I think like what hurts more, like doing this session or losing. You know, and I think that pushes me quite a lot. And also I just love the sport. Like I feel so lucky that I'm able to do this and that it's my job, that I think, yeah, it's worth getting up 4 a.m. to go swimming when you're super tired and it's dark, especially in the winter. I don't know. I just love it. I've never, and I think that's why the last month has been a bit of a shock for me because I've never ever struggled with motivation or enjoyment of the sport, and it's the first time for me that I've really struggled to get out the door. We've obviously not had the best start to the summer in the UK. It's not been that sunny, but and it was quite alarming for me, and I felt quite sad about it. And I thought, oh, I was missing sessions, and I wasn't hitting numbers, and I just felt pretty terrible in myself, like physically and mentally. And then it was just interesting that it's just taken a week of a reset. It's really, really good physio for my back, um, and I'm back crushing it again. And it's so yeah. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's for me. That's what happens.
No, you said that very nicely, and I'm happy to hear that you recovered or are on the path to recovery, both physically and mentally. And I hope that you get back on track soon because, like you said, you were going upwards up until this or let's say previous week. And I think that you still have a lot to show. But what do you think has been your biggest success so far in triathlon and in life in general?
Oh, I think my biggest success in triathlon was I came second in 70.3 Belgium last year, and I came off the bike with a group with a 5 minute deficit to Lucy Buckingham. And I ran my own race. I stayed super present. I felt really controlled, and I just hunted her down. And I got within 8 seconds of the win. And for me, it wasn't even just the result, it was how good I felt. And it was a culmination of it was my penultimate race of the year. It was a real, yeah, this is why I'm doing this. And this is why I'm putting everything into this. Like I can be good at this, like to almost beat a world champion. It was and on a course that I wouldn't say would have suited me. That's just flat and all about being aero. Whereas I like a few hills. But maybe that is my strength. I don't know. Yet to discover. And then so I'd say that just because I felt really good. But then obviously similarly Valencia this year, I came sixth, 30 seconds behind Laura Philipp. It was pretty wild, and I ran 120 off the bike, which I did 123 in Belgium, so that was huge for me. And again, I just felt really good. I just had such a flipping good day, and I just enjoyed every second of it, and like embraced the crowds. And I think for me, that's also success, is that you manage to enjoy what you do, and you can take that energy from other people that they give you, and they'll give you more back if they see you're taking it and running with it. Literally, um, they'll continue to give it to you. And then outside of triathlon, um, I think I'm just really proud of where I'm at, and I've overcome quite a lot of. I've had some difficult times. I say I was in this. Well, so I graduated in 2019 with a first class degree. I was really proud of that because that was hard. And then we obviously had COVID and everything. I was just getting into a really good job, and then COVID happened, so I basically lost that job. And then, sorry, that's my puppy. She's part of my success. And you. Um, I think I'm just proud of rolling the dice and following, really cheesy, but following my dream. And obviously, I'm really lucky it's paying off. I could have done it and I might have been terrible at it. And that one race I won to get my license was just a fluke. But I quit my job to pursue triathlon. I mean, I was having a really rubbish time anyway. I was working for a professional cycling team out in Girona, and it was quite a toxic environment. I didn't enjoy how the riders were treated. I wasn't treated particularly well. I was pretty unhappy, to be honest. So triathlon was a bit of a saving grace that I do say I accidentally went pro, and then meant I could quit my job and move back home and go all in, and find other ways to make a bit of money to pursue this career. So I'd say that's basically the same thing, being well, kind of, but
No,
triathlon just is a big part of me and my success. I think yeah.
that's a nice answer, and I think that you explained everything very nicely. So it's definitely an answer that a lot of people should hear, and also maybe listen to it or do the same because I think that a lot of people don't do what makes them happy, but instead chase some outcomes or some goals that are just arbitrarily set by, I don't know, the people around them or the society in general and forget what actually makes them happy. So
Yeah.
I think that following what makes you happy is very important in life, and is, now that I'm speaking to a lot of people, a lot of guests, it's kind of a common point between all of you professional triathletes, that you all just say that triathlon makes you happy and you're just doing what makes you happy. Speaking of this, what is one thing that you wanted to do for a long time but just haven't done it yet?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know. I don't think I've ever been asked that. I'm not sure if I've thought that deeply about my life.
Maybe that's a sign that you just do everything that you want to do instantly and you have no regrets and no bucket list items.
Yeah, well, I'd love to travel. I'd love to see more of the world. But I mean, the thing is with triathlon is that we're lucky that we get to do that, right? As part of our job. I think for me, when I'm able to earn a bit more from the sport and I can spend a bit more money on going to races, I will spend a bit more time. I would love to spend a bit more time in the amazing locations we get to go to, because right now it's just fly in, fly out. We stay for 4 nights. Like most of the time, we can't even wait for prize giving because it's just like it's all we can afford. Um, so I think hopefully next year I get to enjoy a bit more of the world and spend a bit more time in some sunnier climates. But I think it's not a sacrifice by any means. But for the first couple of years of your career, you're pretty broke. So what you can do is fairly, sadly, a lot of what you can do is limited by how much money you have. Um, so maybe it's something to think about. Yeah, longer term when things start to work out.
What do you think is the biggest stereotype about triathlon?
um, that you have to have a lot of money to do it, or that it's seen as a very middle class sport. I think you can. I mean, GTN, the YouTube channel, they've proven that you can do quite a lot of these things on a budget. And there are plenty of events out there, very accessible to anyone. My local triathlon costs £35 to enter on a Wednesday night. It's amazing. And also, I think the other thing is you don't have to do an Ironman. If you don't want to do an Ironman or 70.3, it's not the be all and end all. I think a lot of people think that you're not a triathlete until you've done an Ironman and got the tattoo. I know people that all they've done is sprint and Olympic triathlons. And I think that's great because you're doing what you want to do. You're not following the crowd. And I think because it's just, everyone knows Lucy Charles and she's become a household name. And I think they think that's like Kona or whatever is the be all and end all. But it's really not. It's just whatever you get enjoyment out of in the sport, you do that. And I think it doesn't matter what anyone else does. It really doesn't. I'm good friends with Nikki Bartlett, and what she's like. She's such a positive ray of sunshine, and she continues in her really successful long career to do what she enjoys, and doesn't race if she doesn't want to race. She chooses races that inspire her, and I think that's just do what you want to do. Yeah.
That's a nice way of saying it. And tell me, what's the one thing that you still want to achieve in your triathlon career?
First pro win.
Maybe in a specific race or any race
Oh well,
possible.
I'd obviously love to win 70.3 worlds at some point, or a T100. I'd love to get a wild card slot. Maybe not this year, maybe next year. Um, but this year, just a pro win. I don't care what race it is. As I said, I'm picking races that I enjoy and I love, so I'll be happy with if I can win one of those, then I'll be really happy.
That's a nice goal to have. What do you think contributed the most to the success you've had so far?
Um, I work really hard. I do. I'm very consistent. My training peaks is 95% of the time, mostly green. Um, and I've got a really good team around me. I've got a really good coach, physio, strength and conditioning coach, nutritionist. As I said, I obviously get to live at home, so I have my family. Um, but I think it's just that it's being consistent day in day out, and that doesn't mean big hero sessions and smashing yourself on group ride or whatever. if you can't train tomorrow, then it's pointless, isn't it? You just have to be consistently average, is what I like to say. And then you'll get the job done than someone who can have an amazing day and then not train for 2 weeks because they put themselves in a hole. Obviously, I can do that because I love what I do. And as I said, I've never really struggled with motivation, and that ensures that I'm consistent. But I think, yeah, with that, if you don't have a good team around you, then it's harder to do because you don't believe in the training, you don't trust your coach. There's a lot that goes into it, but it's a boring answer, but consistency really is key.
It's a boring answer, but it's the right answer, so you just can't go around it. At the end of the podcast, I let the guest leave a question for the next upcoming guest. And my previous guest on the podcast was Eloise Duluart, also a professional triathlete who you might know.
A friend of
And
mine, yeah.
she wants to know if you could redo one race, which one would it be and why would you redo it?
Redo it. Oh, I could redo it. That means there'd be something to change. So obviously, first of all, I think about my DNF a couple of weeks ago, but I think a lot of it wasn't in my control. It wasn't a mistake I made. It was a 12-degree swim, and that just set the day off badly. So, oh, I think where I raced last year. Maybe my first race of the year, which was in Marbella last year. I did no heat prep, and I'd come off a training camp. Still didn't really understand how to fuel my body in training and racing, and I think it just led to a very poor day, to be honest. So that, because although no, changed my mind because I just remembered Challenge London last year, where it was my first experience of a flat race. And the day before the race, we were traveling up, and you know what travel days are like. You eat bits and nothing major. Didn't really have a proper dinner because the pasta I ordered was too spicy. And then on the race, so I came in underfueled, and then on the race day, it was my first experience of a flat course, and my carb bottle was on the back of my bike. And obviously, in a hilly course, you have plenty of opportunity to sit up and take your bottle. But on a flat course, you just don't. So I drank probably a quarter of that carb mix, and then it meant I bonked really hard on the run. I went from second to fourth within the space of like 2 laps. So I thought of that one because I could have changed stuff there. That was in my control.
Okay, that's nice. And I'm sure you'll have a lot of opportunities to fix all those mistakes you made. And what
Yeah.
is your question for the next guest on the show?
If you could be sponsored by any brand in the world, who would it be and why?
That's a great question. Lizzie, it was a pleasure to have you on the show. Tell us, where can people follow you, follow your journey, get in contact with you, sponsors, where can they find you?
So I'm on Instagram at Lizzie Rayner 97. That's probably where I do most of my work. uh, I was on LinkedIn, which is where I do a bit more of the professional side of things. So yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna put all the links into the show notes so people will have no problem finding you. And like I said, it was a pleasure having you on, and thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.